Welcome to the Big Meat Kickoff. I am your host, Kevin Noon. It is Thursday, June 22nd. I know I got a little bit of a late start here, and that really kind of falls down to the fact of I got a phone call that I needed to take. And sometimes it's difficult to explain to people I've got a podcast that I've got to record, a live show. I need to get off the phone, but it was definitely information I needed to get for something completely different. And here I am. So I do apologize for my late start, even if it was only by about a minute. We are simulcasting to our Facebook channel as well. But if you normally watch us on YouTube, that's great. If you're watching us on Facebook for the first time, welcome to the Big Me Kickoff. I, again, am Kevin Noon. The name of the show, obviously, is a play off of Fox's Big Noon Kickoff. My last name's Noon. A little bigger than I want to be right now, and need to do a little bit better job of getting to the gym. But it is the Big Me Kickoff, and it's exciting to have you here. Let me get this message popped up here for Facebook that you can support me by sending stars. Stars help me earn money to make more content, and that is true. And then again, if you are a member of the YouTube community, you know how to handle that. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, don't miss a single episode. And if you do feel somewhat compelled, super chats always help as well. So now that we got all of that out of the way, let me get this out of the way. Love you too, Jordan. Love you too. We are here almost at the end of June. Have you made any decisions who will be your villain in 2024? Because I have put in my time so far. I've made it through almost 6 complete months, so 6 more to go, and then I am in the free and clear, so that's good there. Hello to Sage, and then I want to get here to Mika Hannah's comment because I saw her ask it earlier on the Mark Rogers show that I was on earlier today. Again, you can see me on lots of outlets, but definitely BuckeyeHuddle.com is where you can catch me the most. And does committing this early keep Tavian St. Clair's rankings from raising as high as they should? I think a lot of that depends on how skeptical you are of rankings and the ranking process. And having worked for a major network for many years, I definitely have heard all of the conspiracies. I've heard all of the arguments, and I certainly can make my own points there. On the surface, I think the best thing to say is a kid's talent should dictate what his ranking is. Now, that's not always going to be the case. I'm going to say this one point blank, and this isn't a slam on any network. This is just a reality. I think that there are certain areas that get evaluated more frequently, maybe better than Ohio. Ohio is a situation of where there are not really a lot of in-state built-in Ohio evaluators on the national stage. They're in Texas, they're in Florida, they're in California, they're in Georgia. That's kind of generally where a lot of them are. And it's a lot easier for these evaluators to come out and be able to see the players in their state or their region more so than in Ohio. But I will say this. With Tavian St. Clair, it is very early. He is a class of 2025. He has not played a single snap of his junior year of high school. There are 2 years for things to get rectified. I will go even a little bit further. Based on what I saw last year, Tavian probably, even by his own admission, was a 3-star. What I've seen out of Tavian here recently, 35 pounds heavier, much more command in his game, much more football IQ. As again, you're getting older, you're getting bigger and stronger. You're another year in the game, another year of great coaching. And with all of that, your game rises. So I think that once the evaluators have the opportunity to see what he's done, there will be the opportunity for him to rise. And let me, while I'm here and talking about it, I'll show you some footage of him from last high school football season. And these are his highlights. So you're going to watch them and you'll probably be like, oh, Well, that was pretty good. Well, I mean, they're highlights. So, you're not going to put on an interception or, a bad play. Let me drop where we are right now so you got a full screen. I did not shoot this video, so I can't take credit for it. But big arm right there, nice completion as he hits a guy as he crosses the end zone, rolling out to his left. Big throw right there. I've seen that throw made many times in the college game, and again, dropping back, ripping it, throws it inside just where the receiver can get it, and the receiver does a rest with the catch and run. So, he was a solid quarterback there, but again, a little bit over 6 foot. I mean, he's 6'4" right now, 6'3" and a half, 180. He was still a kid. And, in the grand scheme of things, he is still a kid. I mean, he's not 18, he's not 17. I mean, he's going to be a junior in high school, but he's filling out. And I think a lot of that is important. But let me switch this now to the 7-on-7 event. And anybody who knows me has heard me say this. 7-on is football adjacent. It is not football per se. It is, for those who don't know it, there's no line, there's no pass rush. You have kind of a 5 Mississippi count to get the ball out, or it's considered a coverage sack. It's definitely weighted to the offense. But I watched Tavian for most of the day at Ohio State's 7-on-7 event on Wednesday, and he looked really good. He looked really good. I saw 2 picks. One of them, he kind of stared down his receiver, and that, certainly something that, still plagues pro quarterbacks at times. And then the other one, I just remember it being a pick. I think he threw it into single coverage, and I think it got tipped up, and a safety slid in and was able to catch the deflection. So, I don't know where I'm going to put the fault on that one. I think that maybe the receiver should have caught it. But again, without seeing it in front of me right now at this moment, I don't want to be unfair to anybody. But, we're finishing up these clips here from the 7-on event. I mean, he looked really good. And for people who want to see more footage of him, we have 7+ minutes of footage from the entire day of the 7-on event here on BuckeyeHuddle.com or at Yahoo, or sorry, let me try that again, at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Check it out and be sure to see all of that. Plus, too, we just put up a video of Tavian versus Ryan Montgomery. They met each other in the championship game. Each team had 3 possessions. Each team scored 3 touchdowns. The game came down to a PI call on the Bellefontaine defense, which gave Finley the 19-18 win. But it's a fun little 2-minute or something watch. Give it a look as well, but not right this second. Stick here on the show until we're done. I'm going to try and go about an hour. I've got dog babysitting duty at home, and my wife gets angry when I'm not down there paying attention to the dog. I'm like, well, if I worked in an office, I wouldn't be able to watch the dog. But then again, we don't have to pay for dog daycare, so that's another good thing. So let me get back to your comments here. Again, this is just a broad overview show. I'm going to let y'all pick a lot of the topics and everything else. I did not prepare much, so if I don't get questions and I'm left to my own devices, Lord knows what we'll end up talking about. Drowsy Dragon, likely or unlikely, we land Stewart and Bolden. I think they have a better shot at Stewart than they do at Bolden. I think Ohio State gave KJ Bolden, the talented defensive back out of Georgia, everything in the world to think about. I think even coming out of the visit, I think Ohio State may have even led at that moment, but that's in the afterglow of the visit. And when you're in the midst of the visit and you're having a good time and everything else, you don't think about how far away Columbus is from Beaufort, Georgia. You don't think about any of that. And then you get home and you start thinking about it, and I'm not going to be able to see the family as much and everything else. But I'm not closing the door on Ohio State's chances. I'm just saying I'm going to take the field over Ohio State there. Now with Dylan Stewart, I feel a little bit more bullish on that one. Maybe it's just a little bit of shell shock from last year of how they kind of stumbled down the finish line in terms of landing their linemen. I just think that the coin flips start to even out, and I think that they land them. I don't really have a hard piece of data. I don't really have a hard piece of evidence of where I'll say, well, this is why, because of A, B, C, and D. I don't have any of that. Just call it a gut feeling. I'm not always right on my gut feelings, but I'm right a decent amount. So, we'll see. We'll see. I'll be very interested, but make make no mistake, Ohio State is going to have a very solid 2024 class. Ohio State will fill out the defensive side of the ball and will be just fine. There's always going to be players that, oh, woulda, coulda, shoulda, wish they would have landed. Nobody lands everybody that they want. There certainly was a time and a place where it felt like Alabama did. Alabama was a recruiting monster, and now Georgia has turned into that recruiting monster. I think Alabama's given up a little bit of ground. There was a hot minute where it was USC, and I mean, most of USC's success was coming from west of the Rockies. But, you kind of have to just ride with it and see what happens. But Ohio State is going to put together a top 5 class. Ohio State's sitting at 14 commits right now in a class that I think is going to go north of 25. It'll work out. It'll work out. But just again, to Drowsy Dragon's question, I'm gonna say thumbs down on Bolden. I'm gonna say thumbs up on Stewart. Both are kind of gut feelings. Again, it's not a matter of having data saying this, that, or the other. It's not like I had a conversation with the kid in confidence. And if I did have a conversation with the kid in confidence, I wouldn't break the confidence. You do that once and see how many kids are going to talk to you after that. So but I can assure you I've not talked to anybody in terms of the kid themselves about what's going on. I just feel a little better about Stewart. Time will tell. Jordan Kapler, villains are on a rotation, so 24 will be Tom Orr. Every year it's Tom Orr for me. I like Tom, don't get me wrong, but if I have to, I mean, I just don't want to pick on Tony because we all pick on Tony about so many other things. So Tom ends up getting the brunt of things. It's like when I'm in a group meeting or whatever, and I kind of look through the roster, it always seems to fall downward on Tom. I can't rip on Mark. I've known Mark forever. I don't rip on Alex. I rip on Tony about steak and nuggies and ketchup and things like that, but Tom gets the rest of it. Mika, very appreciative that I answered her question. Absolutely. Absolutely. Love you too. Sage Ohio about the rankings question depends who your PR, your public relations are. And I think there's something to that too. I think that if you do a good job of self-promotion or you have somebody out there that is promoting you, if we hear something enough times, we start, well, is that real? Is that for reals? Are we sure? So, perception can become reality. So there is something to that, Sage. I don't disagree. Again, I'd like to say that everybody could divorce themselves of that, but that's just not the case. So I think there's going to be a good PR case out there for Tavian St. Clair to move up. I think the fact that he committed to Ohio State this far out, Ohio State picked him over Ryan Montgomery. Certainly, and Ryan wasn't ready to commit anywhere. So let's not make it sound like both were knocking on the door and Ohio State just said, well, we're taking you. It was a matter of that Ohio State was like, we're ready to land our quarterback. And Tavian said, Coach, I'm in. There you go. And then, of course, you have Underwood, Bryce Underwood, and, we'll see where he ends up. A lot of people are concerned that this means he ends up in Michigan. Don't sleep on LSU. LSU has really made it abundantly clear that they would like to land him. Brian Kelly's working really hard on that one, as is his staff. I would say as of this moment, I would put it as LSU. Things change. You never know. We'll see. Mika again here. How many defensive ends and cornerbacks do we land in this class? We need depth. I need to sit down and rework my numbers. I don't know. I could just throw out some numbers and then come back next week. I was like, I was just kidding. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say, I'm going to take a pass on this one, come back next week, and hopefully I've sat down, talked to Mark and or Alex, kind of confab, and see what we think the numbers are going to be. Because you just don't know. You just don't know. And there are a lot of times of where, let's use receiver as an example. Ohio State, no issues recruiting receiver. What's the number this year? 3, 4, 5. I can give you a scenario where it would be 5. If Ohio State has Jeremiah Smith and Mylan Graham already in the class. Jeremiah McClellan wants in, which I think he does. That's another one. Then you have Josh Moore out of Maryland. If he wants in, he's in. I think he does too. That's 4. So at that point, you're like, well, we're done. We're done recruiting receiver. We're good to go. Well, then what happens if JoJo Trader wants in? You absolutely take JoJo Trader. You just figure it out later. So that way you get up to 5. Well, at some point, there is a limit to how many kids you can take. I mean, you're not able to take 40 or anything like that. I think the Big Ten, I think you can get up to 28 as long as you have the room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We know that there's going to be attrition. That's just how everything works. But at some point, if you're up against that 28, a fifth receiver means what? You're not taking 2 tight ends. A fifth receiver means you're only taking 3 corners. I mean, I don't know. I need to sit down and kind of look that one through to give you an answer, because I don't like just opening my mouth and letting words fall out and then have to come back and explain them and try and reshape them if I was wrong. So I would rather take a pass on it this week and come back to it. Now, of course, the way this brain works, I won't even remember the question by the end of this show, but I'm going to do my best. It's something I should know. I should have numbers off the top of my head. I know Mark and Alex generally have those type of things set up, but as somebody who does recruiting and team coverage and some other duties, uh, duties, I have to think about a lot of things, and some things slip through the cracks. Here we go with Hilbert HB Hassel Jr. He's growing for sure. I'm from Bellefontaine, and he looks like he's going to be one of the best to leave this small town. He told us, we talked to him midday yesterday, and he made it sound like it had been like several decades since somebody came out of Bellefontaine to go to a major program. So, you know, I agree. I agree that he's going to come out and he is going to be very impactful. And he's somebody that community is going to be very proud of. I'm sure they're proud of him already, but very proud of everything that he's accomplished. He's a great kid too. I mean, he really is. Great ambassador. I mean, I would buy stock in him. I would buy stock in him. I think everybody's going to be really happy with him. But look at this quarterback room that's developing. I mean, let's just say that Hal McCord gets the gig, leaves after a year. You're going to still have Devin Brown. You're going to have Lincoln Keenholtz. You're going to have Aaron Noland, and then you're going to eventually have Tavian St. Clair. I mean, that is a very solid room. Now, is there a name in there that people are going to have, this name recognition with, like a Drake May or a Caleb Williams? Maybe not at this moment, but things change. I mean, I knew who Caleb Williams was in high school. I knew he was going to probably be pretty good. I mean, I knew of Drake May, but I didn't know a ton about him. And now you're looking at two of the best quarterbacks, two of the best known quantities going into the year. So it's a good time to be Ohio State and recruiting quarterbacks. And we're not that far removed from the quarterback was just there as a distributor, was just there to hand the ball off and throw occasionally. And now Ohio State truly is becoming a quarterback destination. I mean, who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? Jeremiah Yoder. Hey, Kevin, in your honest opinion, what is your feeling about the 2023 Ohio State football team as far as wins and losses? Do you need to see this team for a few games? Well, if you're going to give me the opportunity to see them for a few games before I have to make a proclamation, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm gonna defer. I think they can be pretty good. I think that they could go 12-0. On the caveat of saying, how many 12-0 teams come through Ohio State? It's not a ton. It's hard to win all of your games. Ohio State has lost the last 2 games to that team up north. Don't want to say that one too loudly, but it's true. I mean, they got to solve that riddle. They've got a schedule in the back half of the schedule that certainly is going to have a few challenges. What is Ohio State's offensive line going to look like? Is the secondary truly going to regain its form? Is the defense not going to gamble as much? Where are things going to be? I mean, the over under in Vegas is 10.5 wins. So I think 11-1 is pretty safe, right? Largely safe. 12-0 is certainly within the realm, but we'll find. I'll know a lot about this team after 4 games. At Indiana, layup. At Notre Dame, I think we'll know a lot more after those 4 games. So, I'm going to defer there. Yakov, Kevin, is or was seeing the Titanic ever on your bucket list? Not to go down in a tin can that is operated with a Super Nintendo controller. Um, if I had the money to drop 250 large on something like that, I think I'd be more interested of going into space than going into the depths of the sea. I mean, I don't know. I like history. I think when you turn 50, you have to sit there and start watching History Channel almost exclusively. I enjoy all of that. I can appreciate all of it. The technology really isn't there yet to feel great about it. You know what? If the US Navy wanted to put me in one of their subs or something like that, well, first of all, I'd be claustrophobic as hell. I do get claustrophobic, but I would feel a lot safer in an organization that has been putting submariners down into the depths of the ocean for a long time versus some startup that didn't really seem to have all of its what together. And I'm really not trying to make light of the situation, and I'm sure Yakov isn't either. I mean, it's very tragic. I'm assuming that all 5 occupants of that sub have passed away. But I think that sometimes the natural reaction is that we don't know how to deal with loss and death and things like that. It's almost kind of like you have to joke about it to either disarm it or to process it. I have had multiple conversations about it with my wife, and she's like, "That's just so stupid. I can't believe anybody would spend $250,000 on that. If you're a billionaire, you're $250,000. I mean, the reason a lot of people are rich is, because they're not done with their money, but sometimes you have so much money and you've conquered all the dragons, so you're looking for new dragons to slay. Um, it is what it is. I enjoy watches. I would love if I had crazy money, I would love to have a watch collection of where my average watch price was substantial versus the average watch price being in the $200-$300 range. But and of course, I'm not wearing a watch right now, but it's everybody's got to have their passions, and it is what it is. But it doesn't make it any less tragic. And I really hope for all involved that maybe the change in pressure just they went to sleep and they never woke up. Just the thought of being in that tin can waiting for the air to run out just sounds torturous. And now that we're on a complete downer, let me move on with our comments. Hello to Suzabo. How are you doing? Mika again. Can you please compare the competition level between Bellefontaine and Findlay High School? I didn't go to high school in Ohio, so I can't. I could tell you what the high schools are like in Southern California. I could tell you what the high schools are like in Southern New Hampshire, where I lived for my junior and senior years. I know I've gone to Findlay and been at events up there before, and they play some dudes or whatever. Bellefontaine, I know we have. I defer to Hilbert. I mean, it may be. I mean, obviously. Is it a Kevin Noon show? Yes, that means he's fallen behind on his comments. That might be in there, so we may get to it in a minute. But yeah. I mean, is it D1? No, I mean, I don't believe it is. I mean, you're not playing. You're not playing against St. X. You're not playing against Pick Central and Pick North, to my knowledge. But we'll see. Big Sim believes that Bolden is all UGA. There certainly are all the metrics, all of the crystal ball, RPM, Futurecast, whatever, Magic 8 balls that are putting him there. And that could be the case. I mean, that really could be the case. And at the end of the day, it would not surprise me. But I think that Ohio State is going to break through on one of these here at some point. Is going to break down here and break through at some point and land one of these kids. And if Ohio State What if Ohio State lands Edric Houston? What if Edric and KJ say, all right, we're gonna ride or die together. We're gonna go to Ohio State. I mean, that would be something, but we'll see. We'll see. Yakov, I will predict Ryan Montgomery will be a South Carolina Gamecock. Okay. Not sure about that one. Maybe. That's not where I would put him. Maybe Penn State. How about Notre Dame? I mean, I don't know. I don't think Ohio State fans want to see him end up at that team up north. South Carolina just feels like an outlier there. I know Shane Beamer's done a pretty good job there, but I don't know. I don't know why somebody from Ohio, unless you're Ryan Brewer, wants to go to Columbia, South Carolina. Now, if the school were like in, on the coast, if this were like, if this were Coastal Carolina, I'd be all about it, being 15 minutes from Myrtle Beach or whatever. But I don't know if you've been to Columbia, South Carolina. It's just a place. It's nothing special. Being I'm not a college football player, so I'm sure they get treated very well down there, but it's not like I'm like, ooh, where do you want to go? We can either go to Disney World or to Columbia, South Carolina. I'm not picking Columbia. I've driven through there several times. Big Sim believes UGA or Penn State. I don't know if I'm buying UGA. Maybe, but I don't know. I don't know. Again, 25 recruiting with Ohio State only having 3 offers out there, and I certainly knew other quarterback names, but I don't know where a lot of guys stand right now, and there's a long ways to go. I mean, does a 25 quarterback, are they turned off by maybe a lot of quarterbacks that UGA has in 23 and 24? I mean, obviously with Raiola and with Ryan Bogolski, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. They're taking the 2 quarterbacks right there. Obviously, guys will transfer out. Numbers always do equalize at some point, and people can sit there and say the same thing. Do you want to go to Penn State and be behind Drew Allar and Ethan Grunkmeyer? Elite competition wants to compete against the best, so there is something to that. And I've known Ryan through the recruitment of Luke, and obviously through the recruitment of Ryan. He's not going to be a kid who's going to shy away from a challenge, but there's also something to be said about, being smart about what a depth chart is. Elsu Zabo, do we have a real shot at Brandon Baker? Yes. Yes, Ohio State does have a real shot there. Is Ohio State the leader? No, not in my opinion. Is it going to be a tough pull? Yes, it's going to be a tough pull. Can Ohio State land them? Absolutely. Absolutely. But, time will tell on that one. I mean, again, it's going to be a case of Justin Fry is going to have to break through with somebody here. He's only in year 2, and really, and as I said on the Mark Rogers show, this is his first full cycle. Last year, he comes in, and generally, you're getting relationships with these players, working relationships when they're sophomores and juniors. You have, recruiting isn't something that starts day 1 of your senior year or the day that the day that school ends of your junior year. It's a multi-year process. So Justin Fry had to step in and kind of pick up some pieces that were left for him and figure things out from there. This year, at least, he's had, junior and senior year, or going into senior year time, to sort things out. And I think that that's going to be a better opportunity to break through. But then again, Brandon Baker, coming out of his high school that does not traditionally send kids to Ohio State, something's got to give at some point. But is it going to be this time? I don't know. Big Sim really doesn't want Miles Lockhart in this class. I like him. I mean, again, I don't know. It's a case of who are you saying that they're going to get instead? I mean, and if you say Kobe Black, okay, well, then you're staring at star rankings and everything else, and you're trying to cherry pick names and whatever. But if Ohio State gets Aaron Scott and Bryce West, what does Ohio State do with Terion Nichols? Does Ohio State take them? Is it those 3 and Miles Lockhart? I mean, obviously you're going to swing for the fences with some of the top corners out there. I think Miles Lockhart is too talented and too athletic not to take the shot with. I mean, maybe he ends up at a different position by the time he gets here. Maybe after a year they're like, well, maybe we put you here. Lord knows there are a lot of times where guys have come in and not necessarily been the highest rated player at their position and end up being the guy. Chris Olave was not the guy in his recruiting class, but he ended up being a monster. So, I'm not here to tell Big Sim what to think. That's, he has an opinion. I have an opinion. Mika Hanna has an opinion. El Zabo has an opinion. Yakov has an opinion. Everybody's going to have an opinion, and sometimes they may match, and sometimes they may not. But that's what makes this great. Nobody's going to shout each other down and say, "Well, that's all well and good that you have opinion, but you're wrong." I mean, maybe they will, and of course, now that I say that, I'm sure it's happening in the chat. But all things being equal, I mean, I like Miles, so we'll see. Sage, Ohio. I have a funny test story, but too long for here. I'm intrigued. David Greenshield, please list the D line in this class. Oh boy, you're really putting me on the spot, aren't you? Let me pull up a separate browser and kind of look. I don't have my projected class built yet. That's the irony of it. We're not even to July, and I'm already having people not right this second asking me specifically about what is the 25 class going to look like? Well, I don't know. I mean, I know what two players are, and I'm not necessarily convinced that Jonte Gilbert sticks. But I feel very confident in Tavian St. Clair. All right, I'm going through some offer lists or whatever. Offensive, defensive. All right. I like Jaden Jackson, the big defensive tackle out of IMG, ending up at Ohio State. I'm not sure, I'm not sure what might be beyond that. I mean, obviously, there are certainly some names of note. With they had an official with Dominic McKinley out of Lafayette, Louisiana. I don't know. They certainly have been talking with DeAndre Robinson out of Orlando, Florida. I mean, a lot of people would like to see, obviously, Justin Scott end up at Ohio State out of Chicago. Not sure where that one has gone. As we look at defensive end, I like Ohio State's chances of landing Edric Houston, which would be a huge get right there. I think Ohio State certainly has an opportunity with Nigel Smith. I really like Ohio State's chances with Marquise Lightfoot. I think Ohio State has a shot at Booker Pickett. So there are some names right there. I mean, have I necessarily said, "Oh, this is the definitive list"? No. I mean, I don't think any of us know. I don't think Larry Johnson knows. I don't think Ryan Day knows. I don't think a lot of these kids know where they're going. But those are some of the guys that I think that Ohio State certainly has a good chance with, and things change. Things change, but those are the ones that I like. Mika asking, is Tavian 6'4"? He's at least 6'3", and I mean, he's listed 6'3.5" in the one profile I looked, and I would certainly round it up to 6'4". He's a big kid, 6'4", 216 right now. I mean, he's somebody who could be playing at 230. I mean, he could seriously play at 230. He's got the frame for it. He's not going to be a small guy. He's not necessarily going to be a bull in the china shop a la Cardale Jones, but he's going to be a lot bigger than some of the other quarterbacks that we've seen. I think he could have a really sturdy frame. A lot to like there. David Greenshield, we need Scott and West. Well, Ohio State has done everything it can. Ohio State's done everything it can. I think a lot of the noise out there is just that noise. I think Ohio State lands them both. Am I willing to move all my chips in? No. But I wasn't willing to move all my chips in on anybody. I mean, I knew Ohio State was going to get Tavian St. Clair as of this week, and that wasn't because anybody told me. I had two eyes. I saw him on campus. I saw how much he'd been here. I was like, well, this is happening, and it's happening soon. But I still wouldn't have moved all my chips in because I like winning. I don't like gambling. I like winning. So, yeah, but we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. But as I said, I feel better about West than I do Scott at the moment. And I still feel pretty good about Scott. Drowsy Dragon believes that they'll be Buckeyes. Jordan Kapler says, I have no honest opinions, only lies. You are right, Jordan Kapler, but I'm lying there. So there you go. Rushmen are coming. Western Kentucky will test the DBs. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I know what they've done in the past. I don't know what their roster is. I don't have my Phil Steele magazine in front of me right now. I don't have this year's yet. I need to really kind of start doing breakdowns of opponents. That's more of a August series, but I will do it at some point unless Tony or Tom beat me to it. It's just me. Tim says they forgot to recharge the controller. Obviously, getting back to the submarine, if you can call it that got lost on its way down to see the Titanic wreckage. There's just so much that can go wrong there. I mean, there really is. I mean, Lord knows how many accidents NASA's had through its existence on trying to advance and innovate. And then you have this other situation, and it really kind of seemed like it could be a little bit of a ham and egg operation. So, I don't know. It's sad. It's sad. El Suzabo, they imploded based on the debris field discovery. I knew that I was seeing some stuff coming up on Twitter, but I didn't really have time to read it. I was editing some video that Montgomery St. Clair cut up. So, I just hope it was something quick and painless. Nobody should suffer like that. That just seems awful. Mika Hanna, do we all keep all three running backs in this class? I think so. James Peoples isn't going anywhere. I don't think that Jordan Lyles is going anywhere. And I mean, I just sat there and talked to Sam Williams-Dixon yesterday. I don't think he's going anywhere. I mean, certainly he wanted to take that official to Kentucky. Here's the interesting conundrum. Using my vocab word of a day calendar right there. My interesting conundrum is Ohio State honestly is in on like 5 or 6 top running backs in 25. There are a lot of people, I'm not one of them, that believe that Ohio State is it can only take one back next year. I think it's 2. And I think that if there was a year to take 3, it would be next year. Now, of course, the question is, then who would you punt out of this class? Well, I'm not here about, I love opportunity. I love seeing these kids get the opportunity to go to Ohio State and everything else. I'm never going to pull a kid out of a class and say, well, he can't cut it. So I'm not here to answer that question. But if you get Jordan Davison out of Mater Dei somehow, and Bo Jackson wants in, and Byron Lewis wants in, and Torrey Blaylock wants in, and Marquise Davis wants in. That's just 5 right there. Under no circumstances can you take 5. Really, under no circumstances can you take 4. But how do you prioritize the 3 that you're going to take? I don't know. I mean, I know who I would probably take. I mean, if I had to put them in like a numerical order, Jordan Davison is 1. I think I have Bo Jackson 2. I think I have Byron Lewis 3, Torrey Blaylock 4, and Marquise Davis 5. I don't know. I mean, I know people that would flip 2 and 3 and have Byron Lewis ahead of Bo Jackson. I certainly talked to people about that yesterday at the 7-on-7 event, as there's a decent amount of downtime at these events. So, a lot of time to talk amongst your peers and everything else. So does Ohio State keep all 3 backs in this class? I believe so. What does Ohio State do in 2025? Stay tuned. We have a lot to talk about on that one in future episodes over the next 2 years. So, yeah, that'll be coming. El Suzabo, Coast Guard giving an update at 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll probably still be wrapping up the show, but I'll get the Cliffs notes off of Twitter. Back to football. Jeremiah Yoder. Kevin, in your description of the Buckeyes opener at Indiana as a layup, how many points do the Buckeyes win by? Well, I didn't say it was a layup in the words I used 7 minutes ago. Yeah, I said Indiana, and I'm going to get to the super chats here in a second. I said Indiana layup, Notre Dame, meaning Western and Youngstown State were the layups. I think Ohio State still beats Indiana by 3 scores. I think I think we're talking about a 42-21 type of game. Of course, people will lose their ever-loving minds if Indiana scores 21, but a season opener is a season opener, and you're replacing some pieces and everything else. I think Ohio State gets into the 40s. I mean, maybe I would feel a little bit more comfortable saying more like 35-14 in terms of, I think Indiana's probably going to be closer to 14, and maybe Ohio State's offense stalls a little bit, breaking in a new quarterback, breaking in a new center, breaking in new tackles, yada, yada, yada. I don't know. We'll see. All right. I'm marking where I'm at in my comments so I can get to the super chats. Ryan Dawes with a double dip right here. Or maybe I got it. I don't know. Maybe I got it twice. I don't know. Yo, Kev, since I'm super late, I do not want to ask a question that's already been asked. Free choice super chat. Free choice. Let me think here. Here's the problem. I have time. I'll sit there and say things and then not get down to the comment, and then it's really disjointed. So I'm gonna ask a question to everybody. I'm gonna wait for some answers. We'll go to those, and then we'll work our way back up in line. How does that sound? So let me think about my question. Which Ohio State running back leads the team in carries in 2023? Not yards, not touchdowns, not yards per carry, just carries. Who carries the mail the most out of all of the running backs? And for those who have been doing the Rip Van Winkle treatment and need help there, that would be Mayan Williams, Trevion Henderson, Chip Trainum, Dallin Hayden, and Evan Pryor. And those are the 5 backs. So which of those backs? I'm going to scroll down. I've not looked at anybody's answer yet, and they're starting to come in. Rushman are coming, saying Trevion Henderson. Steve Buckholz, hello, friend. Been a while since I've seen you on the show. We certainly talk via text message now and then. He agrees with Henderson. Ryan Dawes says Mayan. It's just me, Tim says Henderson. But then it's just me, Tim also jumps in, whichever is healthy. 12, 13, 14, 15 game season is a long season to get through. So that's very valid, but we got our June prognostication hats on. We don't know. And I can't sit there and say, well, they're all going to be healthy, when last year, few of them were healthy. Frank Carone says Mayan. Elsu Zabo says Trey. Dave Greenshield says Henderson. So that's kind of where I'm at too. It's a case of I think that even with Chip Trainum moving to running back, it is a 1-2 punch of Mayan and Trevion, and it's going to be one or the other. Even though Rushman thinks that Chip will be number 2 in carries. And just to refresh your memory, Rushman are coming also said Trevion Henderson would be 1, so that would mean Mayan Williams would be 3. And it'll be interesting. I think that one thing I look at is if Ohio State has a more willing rusher in McCord or Brown, does that kind of change their approach on how they handle 3rd and short, 4th and short, 3rd and goal from short, and 4th and goal from short? When you have a quarterback that probably is in a better position to sneak or to do some things of that nature, does that potentially take a handful of carries away from a bigger back? Do those carries go to the quarterback because of that? Does that give Trevion Henderson more of an opportunity as the fast guy of the 3 to get, maybe more carries once the pie is divided amongst the 5 backs? So, it's something to think about. David Greenshield, I like Hayden, Jeremiah Yoder, Trevion Henderson, injury free, will lead the team in carries. So it's really kind of been focused between the 2 guys. I mean, it would be I would be very shocked if it were Pryor or Hayden. But I think you got to feed both of them this year too. I mean, you can't say, well, we got a five-headed monster and we're not going to let anybody build up a lather and do anything. But I think you have to keep these guys involved too, or you're absolutely going to have to take a punch of backs in 24 when you sit there and you see your room quite bare. Can McCord run? Yeah, he can run. Is he JT Barrett? No. I mean, not in terms of somebody who's going to run the zone read 100,000 times a game, but he can run. And again, not looking for somebody who's going to pick up 17, 18 yards on a clip, looking for somebody who can sit there and follow his guard and plunge forward for a yard and a half. I think that if Ohio State is able to accomplish that and have a quarterback who, when he reads his keys, sees the end crash in on the running back and can take it outside and run for 6 yards and stay ahead of the chains, I think we see an Ohio State offense that's much more dangerous in the sense that it is not as predictable. It is not as textbook. Well, we know Ohio State's going to pass because the run isn't working. So that's kind of where I'm at that. So Frank Carone, let me finish these here before I kind of get back to where we're at. Is Pryor healthy? Yeah. I mean, is he 100% at this moment? I don't know. I mean, ask Pryor on that one, but he's healthy enough to be ready for fall camp, in my opinion. I think that one's there. I mean, he got injured in fall camp. That's going to be, about a 12-month recovery if he goes, camp to camp. And really, when we're looking at knee injuries, I think the timeline's closer to 9 to 10 months. No two knee injuries are exactly the same. I mean, I think El Suzabo can jump in as a holding her MD, and she knows medicine a lot better than I do. That, it's not like it's a carbon copy or whatever. Everybody heals a little differently. No two guys are necessarily going to be able to carbon copy their rehab assignments. Some guys are just nuts and are going to go through rehab and just take to it like fish to water. Somebody else, maybe not as much. And I'm not saying that's the case with Pryor. I mean, I'm not putting words in my mouth like that, but it's just hard to sit there and say, this is textbook 9-month injury. Let's remember Zach Boren, who ripped up his knee in like his last game of high school. And it was supposed to be a 12-month injury at that point. And he started game one as a true freshman at Ohio State. And that was a lot less than 12 months. So, but then again, if we're talking about somebody who's going to kick ass in his rehab and everything else, if the last name's Boren, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes with all of that. All right, I'm scrolling back up to where we were at. We haven't missed too much. It's just me, Tim. Findlay is a surprisingly nice city. I've enjoyed the time I've spent there. Certainly on my way up to the state up north, I've stopped in Findlay before. There's a Beer Barrel Pizza there that I like. There's a Frickers. There's a like a Steve's Dakota Grill, which is not a Ted's Montana Grill. Eaten there before. It's fine for a lunch steak or whatever. Frank Carone, how does McCord look? Well, we haven't seen anybody really since the end of spring ball. So they're not really going through football activities per se right now. I mean, they're working with Coach Mick and the strength and conditioning staff. That's what they're allowed to do during the summer at this point. But all accounts that I'm getting, I do talk to players now and then, and they're all saying the right things, but are you getting lip service? Or, I mean, is it the truth? I believe it's the truth, but I think it'll be fine. Again, getting back to Steve Buckholz. Hey, Kev, and all my Buckeye friends, OH. Really glad to have you back here, Steve. You have certainly been a fixture, not only here, but at this little website called Buckeye Huddle. And if you are unaware of Buckeye Huddle, first of all, where the hell have you been? But secondly, check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We've got all the finest recruiting coverage, team coverage, podcast, message board community, all of the things that you could want in terms of a Buckeye universe. Not everybody is based in the state of Ohio. Not everybody can turn on the TV and get Ohio State news on their local news. And Lord knows you're not going to count on a 4-letter network to give you all of your Ohio State news. So sign up for Buckeye Huddle and be in the know every single day. for the price of less than a crummy old delivery pizza. You can get a month at Buckeye Huddle. Check us out and see how exciting things are, as we're like a month away from Big Ten Media Days. Can you believe that? Like a month away from Big Ten Media Days. And then fall camp, the creepiest day on the Ohio State media calendar, hotel check-in, where we stand in and watch players walking into a hotel. And then we'll get to probably see a little bit of practice and some things like that, and get you ready for the opener early September at Indiana. And of course, we're going to redo everything else with our pregame shows and postgame shows and all of that. So much great coverage at BuckeyeHuddle.com. But again, also be sure to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube and hit that bell so you don't miss a single episode, especially of my show, because I never know when I'm going to do it. And I'm always prodded on to do more shows, and then life happens, and then I'm like, God, it's been 2 weeks since I've done a show. So there you go. Rushman saying Baker and Lambert won't commit here. I don't think anybody has a great read on Lambert. I was saying as of a week ago, Notre Dame. I'm now cloudy in terms of my prognostication. I don't know why. I don't know why you've come to your decision, Rushman, as now I have cats fighting in here. I don't know, I would be interested in that. Is that more of a prove me, I'm waiting for you to prove me right, prove me wrong? I mean, let me see it happen before I start believing it. Do you have some inside information there? I think both of them are obtainable. I really do. I'm not saying that either of them, I'm taking Ohio State over the field, but I am saying that I think that neither of them are Ohio State is just a hat on the table. Rushman did follow up with never trust modern day. I agree. I've said it numerous times. Everybody drink. I'm saying it once again. Ohio State has not landed a player from modern day since Nikki Sualua. That was a long time ago. So there you go. Mika Hanna, how many linebackers do we land in this class? Well, you got Peyton Pierce. Is Cade Stover a linebacker? I mean, Garrett Stover? Maybe. I mean, is he a big safety? Is he kind of a hybrid linebacker? That's two right there. Then what? I mean, you've got Kingston or KVA. I'll just say that out of St. John Bosco, who I think Ohio State has a very good shot at. You have Nicholas Rodriguez out of St. Thomas Aquinas, who I really like. I think where things sit though with him at this moment is I think they're trying to see what pieces they land to make sure that you don't want to end up with three Wills and no Mike or anything like that. You have Edwin Spillman out of Nashville is somebody that could potentially be on the list. I think, I don't know. I'm steering clear of the numbers. Again. I just don't like, I know nobody here would do this to me, but I don't like having a podcast with me having incorrect information out there and then I have to explain myself. I'm generally the guy when it comes to that kind of stuff that kind of sits in the back and is kind of quiet until I have everything figured out. And then I'm like, all right, now I'm going to talk. Just not sure on the numbers, but I really like KVA's chances of ending up here at Ohio State. I think Nicholas Rodriguez would come to Ohio State if greenlit. And I think there's a pretty decent chance that could happen. So if you do that, that's 4. And if you don't take Nicholas Rodriguez, I think that means that you're getting somebody else. And once again, that means 4. I don't know. The thing is that that's hard to justify when you only play 2 linebackers 90% of the time. Wisconsin is not a downhill running team anymore. I mean, yes, we haven't seen them play since Luke Fickell took over, but they're not going to be a downhill running team anymore. So this is still going to be a 4-2-5 type of team. So there could be some arguments made for taking 3 with the 2 that are there and KVA being the 3rd, but I don't know. Mika Hanna, does Jaden Jackson become a 4-star? I think he should, regardless of where he goes. A big space eater. I mean, I could see him as being a 1 tech in a lot of systems. The thing is that, the rankings still have some time to expand out. It's like when rankings come out for a year, there's like only like like at least Rivals, and I can speak about Rivals because I work there. They have like 15 5-stars, and by the end of the cycle, there's like 36. I think that you're going to see a case too of where 4-stars do get added, and in their system, if you're in the Rivals 250, you're either a 4 or a 5-star, and then they generally would have, I don't know, 40 or 50 guys, maybe 60. It just depends. A 4-star is a 4-star, a 4-star. It's not a cutoff. It's not like if you're the 311th player in the nation, you're a 3-star. Sorry. Um, but I don't really talk to the recruiting guys there anymore. I mean, they went their way, I went my way. So I don't know what they have in there, but I did see Jaden Jackson in IMG's blue white game. Very impressive. So that's my thought. Ohio bookseller. Hello from Scotland. Hello, Scotland. How are you doing? That is fantastic. I wish I could travel. I really wish I could travel. I mean, I do, but Piscataway and College Park and West Lafayette are not nearly as exciting as Scotland. I've been to Scotttown, Ohio, not Scotland, but Scotttown, Ohio. That's where we picked up our puppy several months ago from a breeder down there. And I could probably never find it on a map again. So that's great that you're able to join us, Ohio bookseller. I know to GMT it's 5 hours ahead of us, which means it's 8. So I'm assuming it's about 8 p.m. out that way. I mean, I don't know how the European time zones work. I just know that London is GMT. So I can't imagine that Scotland is really in another time zone. But again, I don't know. Let me keep going here. Yakov, I was not joking about the topic. I was truly interested in what you had to say. See, again, the shortcomings of me falling behind on comments. I'm assuming that's about the submarine, but I'm not positive. But again, it's one of these things that I had an acquaintance kind of read me the riot act. Was talking about the submarine thing, and they're like, "You're being awfully flip about loss of life." I'm like, "I'm not trying to be flippant about it. I mean, I'm just talking about it. It's kind of hard to process." So, John Alexander here. Hey, hi, Kevin. Good to see you. Exciting times coming up for the Buckeyes. Have a good summer. You too, John. I hope you have a great summer, a relaxing one, if that is afforded to you. I don't know who gets the relaxing summer and who doesn't. A lot of work here on this point, but work is good because if it was not for work, I would starve. And nobody wants that. Mika Hanna. Can Bo Jackson play another position as well? Well, this Bo Jackson is not the Bo Jackson that went to Auburn, but he's a running back. He's a running back. I mean, it's not a case of, can he catch the ball? Yeah, he can catch the ball. I mean, are you going to take him over a receiver that Brian Hartline's going to get? No. Is he look like somebody that you just want to put on defense? That's not fair to the kid. He's a much more special, talented player at running back. So that's my thoughts on that one. Steve Buckholtz, Reds, Bengals, Football Club Cincinnati, Buckeyes. Good time to be an Ohio sports fan. Go Bucks. Yeah, how about those Red Legs? I'm a Dodgers fan, so I'm not a Reds fan. I grew up just missing kind of Big Red Machine, but there was a lot of hostility as a Dodgers fan about the Reds growing up when the geographically challenged NL West had teams from coast to coast before the advent of the Central and Interleague and the complete watering down of the sport that I love that is known as baseball. I don't really follow soccer all that much. Bengals, one of these years I'm going to just turn in my Cowboys card and just take a fandom with another team because I'm getting sick and tired of Jerry wrecking that team. But yeah, it is a good time to be a fan of Ohio sports, and looking forward to watching the NBA draft tonight to see where Bryce Sensabaugh goes. I've seen him late 1, early 2, which is certainly down from the high water mark that I saw him mid-teens. I think one of the big shortcomings he's going to have to work on is his lack of defensive skills. He is not a great on-ball defender. But I think he can be pretty exciting. But what would we be talking about in terms of Ohio State men's basketball if he would have come back? That would be something. But we don't deal in hypotheticals that much here. Yakov asking if Luke Montgomery might feel some bad vibes over Ohio State not taking Ryan. Well, I think it would be the case if Ryan tried to commit to Ohio State and Ohio State said no. Um, these kids know how things work. I think they know that every kid has to come to their own decision, even if that kid is your younger brother. And Ryan wasn't ready to make a decision. What happens if Ryan Montgomery tries to commit 2 weeks ago? Does Ohio State take it? Probably, I think. I don't know. I know Ohio State really was pressing for Tavian's commitment. I think that they were sold there. But I think that Ohio State saw two guys in both Tavian and Ryan that both were very competent and very capable and probably would have taken either of them. And playing time will sort everything out. Now, I'm not saying Luke is going to play this year in terms of playing tackle. He could be in on point afters and things like that. But you end up getting into the system and everything else, and you have your boys and everything else. He certainly has his crew of in-state linemen with, with Padilla and Sierveld and guys like that. So, no, I don't think I don't have a concern at this point. Now, if maybe Ryan, I don't want to put words in his mouth. Maybe Ryan has a little bit of a shorter wait. Maybe, if he goes through 2 seasons and he's not necessarily seeing a clear path to the field, does he reconsider? It's within the realm of possibility, but again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. But I think that when you look at where Ohio State is, I think that there's certainly going to be the opportunity as you lose a couple of guards after this year with Matt Jones and with Donovan Jackson more than likely. And then are some of the guys that you have at tackle, do you slide them inside? Are they better suited at guard? Or do you sit there and look at Ryan Montgomery at guard? So I think everything has a way of working itself out. All right, I'm going to skip past all of my answers to my running back question because we've already gone through all of that. Mika Hanna again. Do you think Jaden Ballard plays more and we can rest the starters so they're not burnt out or hurt by the end of the year? Here's the argument I will make here as we have crossed the 1 hour threshold. My thought of only going an hour out the window. You have a quarterback who hasn't played a lot of football, so you certainly don't want to short him the opportunity to get out there and play. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't get out there and play with the first team line and the second team receivers. But I think you want to get Kyle McCord a good amount of experience if he is your guy, or Devin Brown. Again, until a starter is named, I'm going to keep them both in there in the conversation. I don't think you serve any purpose in shorting that. Let's remember the receiver that got hurt last year got hurt like on the second series of the season with Jackson Smith and Jigba or whatever it was. There's no amount of resting that was going to protect him from what happened on that fluky and somewhat dirty hit. So I think that there is a benefit. I had to move something away from one of the cats. There is a benefit for getting some of your younger guys some PT. And while Jaden Ballard isn't necessarily a young guy in terms of chronological, he's a young guy in terms of experience. I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and short my first team offense opportunities to get better, become cohesive, and things of that nature. Yakov, when a quarterback is listed at 6 foot, does he really mean he's about 5'10" and a half? Sometimes it depends on the quarterback. If a quarterback is 6 foot and you list him at 6'2", I think that's less accepted than when a quarterback is 5'10" and a half and is listed at 6 foot. I think that's more widely accepted than the other way around. I think anything over 6'1", there has to be a measure of truth to it, which means I'll give you about a 1 inch margin of error. I mean, it's always a thing that we look at when we get to the NFL scouting combine, and we were like, well, now we'll really find out how tall this guy was, because the media guide was FOS and was inaccurate. But no, I wouldn't say that there. But then again, anybody that sat there and said that Kyler Murray was anything but about 5'6" was not telling the truth, or Tate Martell or whoever. Let me keep going through. Steve Buckholtz going to get ramped up. Try to keep it low in off season so I don't get frenzied too early. Buckeye Huddle rules, as does Mr. Noon. Thank you, Mr. Buckholtz. Steve Buckholtz also saying, "Ring that bell, fellas," and that's a paraphrase, but please do that. I'll give you a 3 count to hit that bell. That all helps us with the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel. I won't spam you. We won't spam you. You will only find out when we are on the air. This is not for an email list or anything like that. So 3, 2, 1, hit that bell. Thank you so much. Freshmen are coming. Lambert canceled his visits with Penn State and took a visit to Harvard. Well, then he'd be close to home. I've heard conflicting information on the Penn State visit or not. I tend to believe he's going to, but I don't have that cold, so I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, Ohio State and Harvard, I don't know if Ohio State's necessarily going to be able to compete on the academic prestige level, but Harvard is not going to be able to compete on the football prestige level. So we'll see. Again, if you put my feet to the fire, I'm going to say Notre Dame, but that is not with much conviction. Let's see here. It's just me, Tim. If Larry Johnson retires in the next few years, could James Laurinaitis coach D-line? Let me move this out of the way. I don't know. I mean, at that point, why don't you sit there and move Jim Knowles to D-line and let James Laurinaitis coach linebackers? I think that if we're talking in the next few years, we're going to see finally that NC2A legislation push through, and the caps on coaches that can positional coaches and things of that nature will be relaxed. I don't know if we're going to see everybody can have 50 coaches or not, but I think we're going to see the 10 counters be a different number. Is it 12? Is it 14? Is it 15? Is it 11? Is it 18? I don't know. I don't think that you can completely kick that door in and say as many as you want, as a lot of programs really have a hard time balancing the books, period. And the Ohio States and the Alabamas and the UGAs could really take advantage of that, even though they would still cry poor. So I think by the time Larry retires, that's going to be remedied. John Alexander, I am on Buckeye Huddle. It's well done. I like how you cover numerous sports, not just football. It's pure scarlet and gray. Thank you, John Alexander. I really appreciate you being a member there, as does the rest of the staff. I welcome everybody else to come on board there too. We're really looking forward to basketball season. I think we might even see some coverage of the women's team this year. Nothing has been finalized yet, but Kevin McGuff is going to have a very talented team. Obviously, LSU is going to be very difficult. Iowa's going to be very difficult. The Cats are fighting in the background, which might be my note to start wrapping up. But yeah, we would love to be able to cover more sports. We're looking at ways to be able to do a little bit more at that, because it's the full Buckeye experience. If you want to talk about wrestling, we got people on the board that want to talk about wrestling. If you want to talk about where to eat on campus, we got people who are willing to talk about all that. You want to sit there and have old stories about when you were a freshman at Ohio State in 1974, I guarantee you there are going to be people on the board that were right there with you as freshmen at Ohio State 1974, 1975, who might even know common people that you know. So check it all out. Let me keep scrolling down. David Greenshield, who will win the Big Ten West? If I knew, I would have a lot of money on that in future betting. I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time taking a first-year coach in Luke Fickell in terms of first year at Wisconsin, not first year as a head coach. Too often we're like, well, he really got it done at Cincinnati. Well, he's got to completely turn over the roster and reinvent the offense and really kind of reinvent the defense with the departure of Jim Leonhard. So things could go really right there or really wrong. It's not going to be Northwestern. I mean, is this the year Nebraska finally does something? I bet too heavy on Nebraska every year, and I use that in a figurative sense, not a literal sense. I would never bet on Nebraska. Can Illinois capture some of the success it had? Is Iowa going to be able to turn things around, even despite Brian Ferentz, but with a couple of Michigan transfers who have come out. What about Minnesota? I mean, we could go through, round and round and round and round there. I just don't know who I like there. So no answer. It's just me. Tim, do you think Ryan Day kind of nudged Dylan Rayola out? I don't think so. I don't think so. I do think that how do I put this? I do think that when Dylan Rayola started to cool his jets a little bit, I don't know if Ohio State just completely freaked out. It was like, no, don't leave us. No, I can change. I can change. I don't think it was like that. I'm sure they did sit there and like, well, see ya, kid. But I'm not under the impression that it was the prior either. So I think it works out for everybody. Dylan Rayola is talented. I mean, it's easy to sit there and say, well, the kid said no to Ohio State, so screw him. No, the kid's talented, and we'll be interested to see what he does at Buford at a really, stacked team. But you're also talking about a kid who's like in his fourth high school in 3 years or whatever. I mean, that can't help his development. I mean, I understand his dad played in the league, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but that can't help his development. I mean, he's going to be in his third offense in 3 years and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Am I saying that Dylan Rayola, that Tavian St. Clair is markedly better than Dylan Rayola? I don't know. It's an incomplete grade. I want to see what this edition of Tavian St. Clair looks like playing high school football. And I really think that I'm going to try and get to one of Bellefontain's first 2 games this year. They're both before the start of the college season. Ultimately, Mark Gibler decides which games we go and cover, but I would like to go see him play. I think that going and being able to shoot an entire game would be really important to the process. Mika Hanna asking what kind of dog. It is a Welsh Corgi. She is downstairs. We keep a baby gate up. Don't want her coming upstairs. And then she's potty trained, but she still has some accidents. I'm sure I'm going to come downstairs to one. But I love y'all so much that I'm willing to have to get the spot bot out to take the show into overtime. Odysseus asking if I'm concerned about him enrolling at Buford. Kind of touched upon that. I think there's this wide belief that every kid who sits there and acts as a recruiting ambassador for their school suddenly is going to land everybody he wants to. Georgia doesn't need Dylan Rayola to recruit Edric Houston or KJ Bolden on their behalf. They're both defensive players. Georgia's defense will recruit those 2 players more so than Dylan Rayola. And I don't know. I mean, Buford is a powerhouse school, and maybe there's some offensive players that it might resonate with who are 25s and 26s, and time will tell there. But I don't sense this overwhelming recruiting dread over it by anybody, whether it be Ohio State or a school not named Georgia. Steve Buckholtz grew up in LA, and yeah, we talked about that. I miss the West Coast, but I don't think I could live back out there at the moment. Too expensive. What my house I could get for it here, maybe under the best of circumstances, might get me a nice cardboard box under Interstate 5 somewhere in like I don't know, Huntington Beach. I don't know. It would be bad. Let me keep Mika Hanna would like me to join the Bengals bandwagon. I do like some Joe Burrow, but I'm not ready yet to walk away from it. I'm just kind of scrolling down a little bit more. I think we're almost. Well, no, we're not. I'm talking about soccer. Too much diving in soccer. At risk of alienating, and that's not what I want to do. Any hardcore soccer fans. If I want to watch soccer, I'm going to watch hockey, and I like hockey. I think that hockey is much more exciting. I mean, you have the chance of having low scoring games. Everybody talks about, well, there's no scoring in soccer. True. You certainly can have low scoring games in hockey, but those low scoring games are a lot more exciting with the speed of the game, being on skates, and the the aggression and the fights and everything else. And no, I'm not one of these hockey fans like, I only like hockey if they're fights. I only like NASCAR if they're crashes. No, I can appreciate both for what they are, but it sure is a lot more exciting. And it drives me nuts when I see highlights of somebody who gets tapped on the ankle and acts like he's been shot in the you know what. They sit there and they bring the little stretcher out there. He's taken off the field, and 30 seconds later, he's running back on the field. I mean, I don't like that, which is why I don't really like flopping in basketball. Just, play straight up. I understand everybody's trying to get an advantage, but they need to do something about that. Gonna scroll a little bit more, a little bit more. Sage, Ohio, after looking at Big Ten schedules, Kevin, you need to do every team's trap game. That is a great idea. I should probably, when I finish the show here in a minute, jot that down because that is a really good idea. I'll probably do a combo podcast and written piece there because that sounds like a good piece for Buckeye Huddle. Let me keep going. Let me keep going. I think we are caught up. I think we are about caught up. And I said I wanted to go about an hour. We've gone 75 minutes. So I think that is a good spot. Just looking here, Wizards are finalizing a deal to send Chris Paul to the Warriors for a package that includes Jordan Poole. I will leave that for NBA Huddle. I'm not going to touch that, but that was the breaking news that just hit my phone as we were doing the show. We're done with Big Me kickoffs for this week, but I'm going to try and do one next week. Probably go live once again. Those are a lot more fun. And then I'm going to start trying to get some guests on. I won't name anybody that I'm going to reach out to in case it gets back to them. They're like, I heard about you wanting me on your show before you reached out to me. So no, not going to do that. But I want to thank Ryan Dawes for the super chat. I want to thank everybody who was involved, whether or not you asked a question or you were just here hanging out. Once again, we simulcast on our Facebook channel. We got thumbs up and hearts over on that side. So thank you there. Be sure to check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Hit that bell, subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms, leave us a 5-star review. It helps us with our distribution, and more people will then join us here. And more people means more conversation, and more conversation means less talk about barbecue and American cheese and nachos and things of that nature. So until the next time, thanks again. Have a wonderful day and take care.